The House of Representatives Committee on Public Petitions and the Department of Petroleum Resources are on a collision course over Dawe's Island Marginal Field lost by Eurafric for holding the national asset without production and making it unviable for 17 years. The Minister of Petroleum Resources, through Department of Petroleum Resources, a regulator empowered by law, awarded the field to Petroleum 54 Limited and its partners during the last bid round, a decision that was countered by Eurafric through a petition to the House Committee on Petition. Well, joining us now from Arise Abuja studio to look at this matter in relation to emerging issues from the recent passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill is Ademola Adigun. He's an oil and gas policy expert who has worked on oil governance and transparency for over a decade as team lead for the Facility for Oil Sector Transformation, FOSTA. He's also currently the Executive Vice President of Metokura Development Initiative, an Abuja-based policy and management consultancy firm. Welcome to the program. Great to have you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Great. I think a good place to start it would be the governance structure of the petroleum industry bill, the new governance structure for it, because we know the bill is here to correct all the wrongs, even though some have argued it's not a silver bullet. Two regulators, one industry, the Nigerian Upstream Regulatory Commission, and the authority to take charge for midstream and downstream. What was the thinking behind this, and what are your thoughts?
Okay, the thinking about it is simple. The oil and gas sector suffers some deficits. One of them is governance, which is the foundation of growth for any country. The other is transparency, the other is accountability. I mean, you would agree with me that over the years, every other government in power has had a scandal about something about oil or NNPC or some issues. In real sense, we have a DPR, which is an emergent party from a ministry. So it's an inspectorate, then became a DPR. And you find out you have a director who reports to a minister. So there's no independency, there's no real powers to some extent in some areas. And you remember a point in time in Nigeria where we had a minister who fired about 4 leaders of a DPR because of various issues. Now, when you don't have independency as a regulator, your limitations are there. If you are not accountable to certain board structures, you can't be as transparent as you ought to be. So the whole reason about this is to say, well, look, governance needs to be strengthened. We need to have a commission for upstream, another one for midstream and downstream. Now, the question people ask is, why don't you have a single regulator, which is a practice? But every country determines how they run theirs. Every country determines what they want to do. And I think for Nigeria, the whole focus of Nigeria now is to strengthen the midstream and downstream where we can create jobs, where you can go the GDP. And then for the upstream, again, there were issues around improving the power, but not allowing to have a super regulator who becomes super creep. So the whole idea was to ensure there was balance, and we had a way that governance was strengthened, transparency was there, and we also allowed some flexibility that somebody doesn't become the whole alpha and omega in oil and gas sector. So that was the thinking behind it. Okay. Before I go to your next question, I just want to ask what your opinion is on the position of the House of Senate having ratified the 3%. And then I'll just add on the question, what would be the impact of the PIB on newly awarded assets when it comes to the 2020 bid round? In terms of developmental efficiency and where you default, it then leads to revocation. How would you advise new awardees to proceed in the light of this? Well, I think one of the greatest things that has happened, which is in the PIB, is a drill or drop. We've had a history. I think the first attempt to Nigerianize the oil and gas sector was in 1990, when Babangida awarded some oil blocks to some Nigerians who we thought, or who were thought to have the capabilities to make financial investments of it. Of the awards, I think only about 3 or 4 have been mined. We've got FAMFA, we've got Corn Oil, and some other 2. Now, a lot of people get these licenses or win the bids and then go sell it off. Sell it off to people who are incompetent, sell it off to people who don't have financial capabilities. And then the whole thing is that we suffer as a country. Now, we have 2 problems in the sector right now. We have declining take from the barrel. We have declining returns from crude. Now, we are limited to 1.45 million barrels a day by OPEC quota. If we're not to ramp up to 2.1, if a lot of fields are lying fallow and people just have them, and are not producing from it, we're losing revenue from the field, we're losing job creation from the field, we're losing GDP developments from the field. So it's a basket of saying you have something you can't use, you're not using it, so you do not drop it. Now, to your specific question about what happens to the new bidders, the PIB is clear. You have a timeline, you paid your licensing fees, you have a timeline given to you to find investors to work with you. If you can't, drop it. Drop it for something to use. Because, look, we're facing a battle. Code is not going to be as powerful as it was, or as useful as it is in the next 20, 35 years. Now, imagine you getting a bag of cowrie shells now. You carry shells from your grandmother, who at that point in time, cowrie shells was much money. Then cowrie shells today, it's decoration. So in a race to ensure that we maximize what's under the ground now, we can't have people having a field, whether marginal or others, and not exploit it, because at the long run, the state loses. So the relevance of crude is insufficient. And then, you know, the present value of money. We are a country with challenges in balancing our budgets. So as much as we can get in taxes, in royalties, in other things are important for now. So anybody that's going to that kind of exploration should be thinking about, do I have the capacity? If I can't, I drop it. Okay, so now, laws are not usually retroactive.
No, please go ahead. Complete your thought.
So laws are not usually retroactive, but everybody is going to come under the PIB once there's assent by the presidency. The PIB repeals about 9 laws, and all those laws that were governing the sector become repealed as soon as this PIB is signed. And that means we're all going to be governed under the new law as it goes. So anybody in that space should think about capabilities, capacity, efficiency, and inability to say, well, if I can't use this, let me leave it for somebody that can use it. We can't tap revenue for future today because people are not capable or people are emotional.
Okay, drill or drop, we get that. Do you want to throw in your own opinion as concerns the 3% that's been ratified today by the House or Senate?
I mean, for me, I am glass half full and half empty. Now, I've seen a lot of positions from different people saying, oh, we want 10%, we want 20%. You can have any percentage. But the question I ask everybody, what is the principles behind this thinking? Then number 2, this is an additionality. You had 0 before. Now you're getting 3% of something. Now, what does this thing try to do? To try to bypass capture that's happened in derivation, in the corruption allegedly in NDDC and other parties, and give the communities a voice to determine their own future and tie them to ensuring there's continued production. So you're tied to the state. Now, 3% of what? 3% of previous year's operating expenses can be significant. But the question is not how much the money is how well utilized the money is. And it's a starting point. You start from something, then you can move forward later on. You can say 10% tomorrow, but you have to start from something. So there was 0 before. Now, if you say don't sign the PI because of that, then you go back to 0. 0% of 0 is 0. So it's better for communities to think, okay, we've got something. We still got our derivation. We still got what you get to NDDC. We still got other things. This is a starting block for discussion. So I'm in support of it. I mean, I'm not concerned about percentages. I'm concerned about utilization, benefits. I'm concerned about the fact that we can ensure you see the money that goes back to the community that newly needs it. So I'm in support of it.
Well, let's talk about this bid rounds. Some analysts had said that the 2003 bid round was not only more transparent than the latest 2020 marginal field bid round, but it was also rigorous. Yet, 11 fields did not achieve production. And I'm asking this in light of the recent controversy between the House and the Department for Petroleum Resources over Dowries. What are your thoughts? What exactly are we dealing with here? What are the issues here?
We have to ask ourselves a question. Do I have the mandate to act in the way I'm acted legally? Yes, I can. Does DPR have the right to act and revocate license or utilize? They do. Is it part of the contract you sign at the point in time when a license is given to you? It is. Now, the problem we have in Nigeria is that people don't want to follow rules. We built a country where people want to use influence to get things done. And this is the reason why we have an oil sector which is in crisis. You can't, because you're a member of a house or a senator or a president, negate the powers of an institution. You asked about why we're having an upstream commission and a midstream commission and authority. The reason is simple, because of these kind of issues. When you take a field, you keep it for 17 years, you don't invest in it, there's no return on it. Imagine if that field was producing at the point in time when oil prices were like 120 a barrel or 110. Imagine what we could have done with that money for that thing. There's something called net present value of money, which is an accounting term for saying money today is better utilized for today than saving money that you can't predict tomorrow. So it's not the business of the National Assembly to get involved in such matters. I see it as an abuse of process and abuse of law. The question we should ask is this. DPR has the mandate, has the power, is following the law, it's fine. Now, if we can prove that there's other than the law, and there are other things there, then it's a different issue. I read your report about Bielsa and the emotional argument of the governor were not ready. You had 17 years to make something operational. You had years to put investment in it. You didn't do it. Then at the point in time when it's taken from you, now say, oh, we could have done it. It doesn't work that way. We all have to come to a point in time when we follow rules and laws. And on the question about transparency and bid rounds and other issues, a lot of complaints about this bid round has been given. I've read reports about this bid rounds not being as transparent as ought to be and everything. But I think the issue is this. If DPR, the process that it published, which is what the law says, this is the way this bid round will be conducted, this is the way we'll assess it. If it hasn't followed that, then it falls on the parties to go to the right channels to appeal or do other things. But if it has been followed, it's a different case. Now, when you say, okay, last 19 years ago, we had one, then we had 10 fields lying fallow. That's the problem. Now, that's why the PIB now has a clause that says drill or relinquish, or drill and drop. It has to be such that you can't hold something in perpetuity because it's just for you. Oil is an extinguishing asset. It won't be there for all our lives. Money is something we need today to build the future. We need to start thinking about transitioning away from oil. But we need all money to transition away from oil. So if you keep something there on the ground, then when everybody's, you read the EU guidelines yesterday and their proposals on cutting emissions and climate transparency and changes. Now we now have an asset that in 4 years is worth nothing. What's the point? So I think as it is followed by law and it's done under the rules of transparency and rules published, then I don't think it's a National Assembly matter. I think this is part of the abuse of process that happens in the country, why people just do things the way they want to do it.
Okay, you've made it very clear that the reason the oil industry is in the position it is because people fail to follow rules. So let's look to legality and following rules. The Petroleum Act and the PIB in Section 99 states that if 2 or more persons hold a license, grounds for revocation might apply to only one person. It's generally agreed that failure of an asset is attributable to the operator. So my question is, does and should the DPR have the power to revoke and award assets?
They ought to. These assets are, let's get one thing clear. All assets under the ground are held and belong to the federal government of Nigeria. When a license is given to you, it's a lease. You don't own it. It's given to you to use. Same thing if I buy an Uber, a taxi, and give it to an Uber driver. What I've given the Uber driver is use of my asset to bring in revenues for me. Now, when you can't bring revenues for me and I've tied down asset, I am making losses. So I have the right to say, bring back my assets. Now, DPR is not acting for itself. It's acting in the interest of Nigeria. The power is there. There's an operator, and if operator or default, you are the parties that enter the contract. And DPR said this is things. So the power to do that is in the law, and the DPR is acting under the law. Now, should it continue to have that power? I totally think it should. I don't agree on any super creep, and that's why I support the dual regulatory provisions in the current PIB. But again, we have to be things. There are a lot of historical issues and many, many, many assets, not only by marginal fields, even by IOCs lying fallow. Many companies in Shell and everything have assets they're not using for anything. And that is not good for the country. The country has to use what it has now to maximize the future to ensure we can build a new country away from crude oil. And so we stop suffering recessions when oil prices dip, or start suffering false growth when oil prices rise. We need to find a way to move things, but we cannot do it without revenues. So, and I think, again, people should understand that everything under the ground, it belongs to the government of the country. And the government has empowered a regulator, a quasi-regulator, to be clear, to utilize it on their behalf.
Ademola Adigun, thank you so much for being on Newsday. Much appreciated.